Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Layla Martin, the CEO and founder of Astro Academy. Good afternoon, Layla.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thank you. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. This interview gives me a chance to close the door and tell my kids they can't come in. So being quarantined with 4 children, it's nice to have a break.
I understand your challenges. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experiences?
Sure. So my name is Layla Martin. I'm a women's media center expert. I am the theorist who coined the term astrofeminism, and I'm currently developing the theory at Harvard University. And I also founded She Rose Up, which is a nonprofit that provides loans to women without access to traditional capital. And as of 2012, we've funded 84 loans to date.
Wow, that's very impressive. Congratulations.
I think what's inspiring is to see the photos and the progress of the women that have received the loans, and the repayment rate is very high. I don't have the exact number, but I think it's over 90%, which is surprising given that these are women in the poorest communities. And I think it's really important, the microfinance, and that it really does work. I have experience with it and all the data to see that this is really something that should be expanded. You know, with this COVID-19 situation, this pandemic, I really think a lot about the people that have the least and how this is affecting them and going to affect them, versus people who have extra computers, internet access, and they can say, okay, I already work from home. You know, a lot of people are not in that position. And so it's been an interesting time to reflect on that and what we need to change.
Yes. So speaking of it, can you give us your experience with remote employment, both as an employer and an employee?
So in terms of Astro Academy, we started developing the online platform for the aerospace and defense industry for growth in January. So we have not launched yet. I'm working with developers, but I wouldn't say I'd necessarily have employees at this point. Once we do launch our professional development courses, I will be working with experts in the space industry. So in terms of the remote working and how that's changed, well, when I have a call with somebody at NASA, they're in their office, and it's been interesting to have calls with people, you know, in their home. You definitely get a sneak peek or something, and it exposes the domestic world. And as a mother of 4 children, I've been home for 15 years. I think that's really interesting because it has exposed the challenges that women face when they're at home raising children and how to juggle it all. I remember Jimmy Fallon, you know, he's working from home remotely doing the show. And in one of those first episodes where he was working from home and his kids are jumping all over him, and he's saying, this is so hard, this is so difficult, to the person he was interviewing. And I thought, yes, it is. And so the COVID-19 pandemic, it's tragic in so many ways and so many levels, but it's also exposed challenges that women face every day and how hard it is to juggle, you know, doing your professional work when you have children. And is it socially acceptable now for them to kind of walk in, or for you to have to go or be late? I think it's different. I think it's really interesting to see how quickly we evolve.
Yes, it will be very interesting, especially depending on the age of the children, where teenagers are a little bit easier to handle, but a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, they just don't know.
They don't know, and every 15 minutes they want something new or something different. And you want to balance that. This is, so I could create a story for my kids about how there are these germs, and so to keep that, they have to be careful, but you also need to be able to walk outside and get fresh air. And so how to balance that, not scaring them, but helping them understand how important it is to stay, you know, safe and wash their hands. So that's challenging.
Yes, it is. I
with
understand.
teenagers, they already kind of hole up and have their phone all the time.
I
And
know,
so
they're in their
I
own
think
world.
my teenagers haven't experienced this as so challenging, but it's been more for me to redirect them.
Mm,
So I created what I was calling Camp COVID. And so every day we had a new theme.
mhm,
So for example, we did a Hawaii day and I played Hawaiian music. I made Hawaiian food. And on YouTube, we watched virtual helicopter tour. And so to kind of redirect them of instead of them just consuming more and more videos and
mhm,
being on TikTok or whatever,
yeah,
to say, okay, we're going to redirect our media, our consumption of content today with a theme.
mhm,
And that has worked really well. They've enjoyed it. And then they started sharing the theme with their friends. So their friend will do Hawaiian day at their home. And
mhm,
then they'll share if they did a lei making or, different activities or what they saw, take a hula lesson
mhm,
online. So I think my background before I am in the aerospace and defense sector as a academic was I was a creative director at Warner Brothers, and this experience has helped me really appreciate how important it is to be creative,
mhm,
um, and also how important it is to enjoy cooking
mhm.
because if you can't go out to eat all the time or every meal you're trying to do takeout. I have some friends that are single men and they don't know how to cook, and
Uh,
I've been trying to do Zooms with them, like
mhm.
how to make eggs for yourself.
Oh, wow, that's really basic. So believe it or not, I do cook for myself, but I finally, for the first time in my life last week, made lasagna.
Yeah,
It
it's
came out
it's
really
fun.
good.
We did lasagna yesterday for Easter Sunday,
Mhm,
and it was fun to teach my daughter,
mhm,
how to make it. All these different things. We've been cooking a lot. We
mhm.
even did In-N-Out burger at home with the recipe.
Oh, cool. That's a good
So
idea.
it is. It's fun. I mean, you can still drive through In-N-Out, but the line here it's like
Mm,
2 hours
I know, it's
long, and
ridiculous.
I'm
Even under
trying
normal
to
situations, it's ridiculous.
eat as much at home as possible and leave as little as possible.
Yeah,
So they like that. To try to make it fun.
yes. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
I think that remote employment, it's going to change drastically in terms of the increase of meetings. I think that conferences are going to die out. I think
Mhm,
that the idea that we need to all meet physically in a location in one of those big conference centers, I think people aren't going to believe that is as necessary. I attended the International Astronautical Congress in Washington, D.C. in October of 2019, and I think it was like 10,000 people or something. It was so many
mm,
people,
yeah.
and it was so much to take in.
Mhm,
And so I think in terms of the remote working, there's going to be it will evolve in terms of how we come together.
mhm,
Um, and I think the idea of just having meetings and connecting and being um, sharing presentations with people, if we can all do that remotely, why did we need to be in an office? And so I think this has just pushed that evolution rapidly. When I started to have the idea of founding Astro Academy, I thought, a remote online education platform makes sense because I've experienced that through Harvard, through the extension
mhm,
school for 4 years. And I think that it brings together the aerospace and defense companies virtually in a way that they only have that at, specific, these different conferences. And so I think that remote working, it
mhm.
works and
Yeah,
it
I
makes
agree.
sense. My husband travels a lot for work, and that is I think going to be ending in terms of that he
Yes.
won't need to be in so many of those conferences and have face-to-face time, face meetings. You need to handshake, and it's like I don't think people are going to be shaking hands and organizing as much as that. But I think it's important to emphasize how important it is to connect with
Mhm,
other people, and that we need to still experience that connection, but we don't need to be physically in the same room to do that.
Yes, I agree. So you've brought up Astro Academy. What is the story behind Astro Academy, and what's the journey been like?
Well, the story is that when I attended the International Astronautical Congress, I noticed that it was mostly men,
Hmm.
mostly white male engineers in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And I just felt that there was such a lacking of a female presence. And although there were women there at the Congress, it was a very male-centric priorities in terms of the space priorities and looking at terraforming hostile planets and extracting resources. And I thought the space industry is really lacking a female-centric priority. And I believe a female-centric priority would be using space-based assets to shine a light on Earth and to heal Earth, from anywhere from climate mitigation to increasing access to education and healthcare for women in impoverished countries. So I felt like it was kind of obvious to apply feminist theory to the space sector. And when I Googled the term, I didn't find anything, and I was shocked because the idea of applying feminist theory to the space sector, there are articles and people have certainly written about it, but not to this degree to tie in smart power, which is the combination of hard power and soft power, and apply smart power to space governance and priorities, space policy.
Hmm.
So I thought once I developed that theory, what would be a way to bring those ideas, those concepts to the space sector? And so I thought I'll just launch a digital platform, a digital academy, and connect all of these experts in the industry that I know and have them teach classes and just reframe the way that we approach space.
It's actually very fascinating. It's very impressive. So,
There's a lot to talk about when you get into space and the space sector with people. There's so much, because just if you look at orbital debris mitigation or low Earth boundaries and the boundary conditions between that and geostationary, it's such a neat industry to be in, because it's very inspiring and exciting. And prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was so much growth with the smaller space companies, and I'd be interested to see how this will affect those startups. I
yeah.
think having access to capital, it comes into play so much right now of who's going to be able to keep going, in terms of the
Yeah.
business, and how access to capital, it's so important on every single level. If you don't have credit,
Hmm.
how are you going to get through this? And that's from the woman has kids at home and doesn't have a credit card, all the way up to these startups that were creating these new and innovative space technology. How are they going to get through this?
Yes, I agree.
There's
Well,
a lot to talk about. I love the subject today. It's really
I know, and
timely.
I wish we had more time, but we're running short. So I want to thank you for your time today and everything you shared with us. This is actually very fascinating.
Well, thank you. And when I get Astro Academy, when we're ready to launch, I hope I can come back and talk about what we put together, because I think it will really help a lot of people, a lot of women in particular in the space sector.
That would be great. I'd love to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.